Hello and welcome. I'm Esther Gitu Ewart. This is Africa 54 and here's what's coming up. Drone footage in Libya shows widespread devastation in the city of Derna after it was hit by a torrent of floodwaters that killed thousands and flattened buildings. In Morocco, residents show resilience after the most powerful earthquake to hit the country in over a century. An Archbishop of Kigali, Rwanda, Cardinal Antoine Kambanda, talks about a 30-year journey of reconciling divided communities after the 1994 Rwanda genocide. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. New drone video shows the widespread devastation from flooding in the Libyan city of Derna. A torrent of flood waters killed thousands of people and flattened buildings. And now Derna city officials say thousands of people are being buried in mass graves. A spokesperson for the Eastern-based Interior Ministry appointed by the General National Congress says that over 5,000 people have been killed in Derna. But a Libyan House of Representatives spokesperson revealed in a media interview that the death toll in Derna has reached nearly 7,000. Health authorities say the death toll is at least 9,000 and more people are still missing. The catastrophic loss of life in Derna could be attributed to the collapse of two major dams upstream, which swept away many victims in their sleep. Emergency officials say as much as a quarter of the city has disappeared. The head of the World Meteorological Organization says casualties could have been avoided in Libya had the split country had a functional meteorological service and the ability to issue warnings to the population.
So that's a conclusion, that if there would have been a normally operating meteorological service, they could have issued the warnings, and also the emergency management authorities would have been able to carry out evacuation of the people, and we could have avoided most of the human casualties. Of course, we cannot fully avoid economic losses, but we could have also minimized those losses by having proper services in place.
Tala says the World Meteorological Organization had previously been in touch with Libyan authorities to assist them in performing the country's meteorological system, but the effort had been hampered by a dire security situation. Now for more on what's being done to help Libyans shattered by floods, I'm joined from Tunis, Tunisia, by Ahmed Bayram, media advisor for the Middle East at the Norwegian Refugee Council. Ahmed, welcome to Africa 54.
Thanks for having me, Esther. Nice to be with you.
Tell us what your organization is doing to help thousands of Libyans devastated by the floods.
So NRC, the Norwegian Refugee Council, has been in Libya since 2017. We are on the ground. As we speak, our teams are out in the field, over 100 of them, in areas including Benghazi, which is around a couple of hours from Derna. We are starting tomorrow and starting this weekend. We will be offering essential but simple basic needs for people, things like blankets, mattresses, for people who have been without a blanket all these 4 or 5 days. We are working across shelters to assess the needs as well in Benghazi. In Benghazi, there are 18 schools that have opened their doors, and there are around 500 people there. We expect more to stream into Benghazi to become kind of displacement hub as people leave Derna. And just also for your audience, I mean, Derna used to have 7 functioning roads. After this catastrophe, only 1 road had been functioning until today. As we speak, more roads are gradually opening, and hopefully that will help us help our team get in more aid into Derna. But we are working around the clock, and we need the support of the world. The world needs to throw its weight behind Libya at this moment.
So, Ahmed, what is being planned for the next couple of days, especially hearing what's happening in the city of Derna? How are you planning to reach those people, to save lives? People are just holding on to their breath, hoping that they can live another day.
Yes, exactly. And the impact is of course, on thousands of people. NRC and others are ramping up our support. This means life-saving and life-sustaining, should we say, support, including food, including water, clean water, including temporary shelter for people. There are lots of people who are spending days and nights in the open. There are other important, of course, basic needs that NGOs will be looking at, and that includes milk for babies, hygiene items, simple for girls and women and babies as well. I mean, these are the things that people will practically need. I just want to refer to the needs here, because as we speak, there are children roaming the streets with dead bodies of people they probably knew once, lying on the street. And this is a tragic situation that no child should experience.
Well, Ahmed, very fearful situation there with an outbreak of diseases likely to take place there. Ahmed, thank you very much for talking to us on Africa 54. Ahmed Bayram is a media advisor for the Middle East at the Norwegian Refugee Council. The damage caused by the most powerful earthquake to hit Morocco in over 100 years is enormous. But residents say it also shows the resilience and spirit of the people. Emmanuel Mwaji-Dibaye visited Mouli Brahim, one of the affected villages, and has this story narrated by Azuma Compaore.
The town of Mouli Brahim is near the epicenter of the earthquake that struck Morocco on September the 8th. This explains not only the extent of the damage recorded here, but also the large influx of people from other villages and towns who have come to help with rescue efforts.
I saw how many people have nothing left, nothing to eat, nothing to sleep on, nothing to live on. No one can remain indifferent. I really like all the people like me who live in Marrakech, because I know there are a lot of them. I'd like us to look after a few people, not just now. I'd like us to look after them now and keep in touch with them, and over time make contact. I'd love if people could come here and help out, and we all help each other out.
After helping to bury 22 of his relatives, Mouli Brahim resident Abdelhamid Aouzal joined efforts to collect for those in need.
We are trying to put together everything we have received from citizens and residents of other villages. We are trying to gather everything here in the headquarters of this association, and we have organized the commissions to share with them afterwards. There are families in several surrounding areas here, so we are still at work.
Bader Manouche, a primary school teacher who taught students in the High Atlas Mountains in Morocco, based in a village near the city of Asila, echoes the sentiments of those on the ground about how civilians come together in this time of crisis.
Many videos of people, they don't have nothing, but they give in. And this is known about Moroccan people. Moroccan people are ready, and you find them there whenever it's about like cooperation, solidarity, cohesion. Every time someone or some parts in Morocco needs something, they are all together. It's like a body.
The earthquake heavily hit the High Atlas Mountains, killing nearly 3,000 people and injuring over 5,000, according to official accounts. The earthquake is the country's deadliest since 1960. For Emmanuel Mwaji-Dibaye in Mouli Brahim, Morocco, Azuma Compaore, VOA News.
Merdad Sassani, professor of civil engineering at Northeastern University, spoke to VOA's Antonella Bruto about why the earthquake in Morocco was so devastating to remote areas compared to other cities in the country.
So in terms of mud brick, the component is weak, is brittle, and they are very heavy. When earthquake comes, ground is shaking, and that shaking would a structure that is heavier would absorb more energy, more force. So as a result, the components are weak, and then the whole structure, all walls, as well as connection between walls and roof, is not well integrated. So as soon as the component starts to break, which usually start from top of the wall or some cracking, so the wall would give in and then the roof would come down.
What do you think can be done differently going forward to decrease these kind of widespread collapses?
The reason those mud brick or adobe are used in those areas, other than accessibility and ease of construction, is that they are practical for those areas. They have a very good insulation properties. That is very good thermal properties. They could save energy significantly in the winter time and in the summertime. So that's why people have used them. That's why it has been easily accessible and they were constructed. So as a result of that, the solution needs to be multifaceted. It's not, again, is not an engineering problem. It's not only an engineering problem. Having said that, there are methods that could make adobe structures considerably stronger in earthquakes, considerably stronger. Would they resist earthquake and do not fail? Not really. Everything has a limit. But you can make them considerably stronger, and as a result, you would get a significantly improvement in the likelihood of people dying during earthquake. Again, consider this. You are in a rural area, you have extremely limited resources, and someone, let's say like me as an engineer, goes there and say, make these types of construction. Even if they listen, they say, okay, but where do I get the resources to do that? And the government really cannot go and make buildings for everybody. Beyond the financial and economic resources, there is obviously need for technical resources, but they come by far later. If you don't have those, again, economic resources, no engineer can solve problems.
That was Mehrdad Sassani, Professor of Civil Engineering at Northeastern University, speaking with VOA's Anthony Labruto. A 5-month-old baby boy has drowned after a migrant boat capsized off the Italian island of Lampedusa. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is calling for solidarity among the EU on the issue of migration. Almond Lee reports.
A 5-month-old baby boy drowned during a rescue operation off the Italian island of Lampedusa after a boat carrying migrants capsized, Italian media reported on Wednesday. The vessel that set off from Tunisia capsized shortly before it was intercepted by the Italian Coast Guard. All of the other passengers were rescued, including the baby's mother, local media reported. The tragedy comes as migrant landings on Lampedusa surge, straining the small island's ability to cope. The island is Italy's southernmost point and has long been a flashpoint in Europe's migration crisis. It's often the first port of call for people crossing from North Africa. Most of those arriving stay at the island's reception center, which has an official capacity of around 400. On Wednesday alone, there were more than 1,800 new arrivals, bringing the number of migrants on Lampedusa to more than 6,700, according to local media. The number of migrant boats arriving in Italy has surged since the start of the year, almost doubling what was recorded in the same period last year. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called for European solidarity on the issue.
This is a problem that is not only a problem of the countries that receive this influx, it's a problem of the European continent and in particular the European Union, and there must be mechanisms of solidarity and burden sharing that are effective in this regard.
Italy's far-right government has taken a hard line against migration. In July, it led the EU into striking a deal with Tunisia to stem migration flows. It is now pushing for similar agreements with other countries of origin and transit. The government also targeted migrant rescue charities, impounding their boats and banning them from conducting multiple rescues. Charities have been accused of working with human smugglers, something they strongly denied.
That was Ahmed Lee of Reuters with that report. The African Studies and Research Forum is underway here in Washington. The forum has brought together African scholars and experts to discuss issues of importance for Africa and honor those who are making immense contributions to the continent. For more on the forum, I'm joined live via Skype from here in Washington by VOA's Paul Ndiho. Paul, welcome to Africa 54. Tell us what is happening there. What are the scholars addressing on day one of this forum?
Thank you, Esther. It's certainly an interesting forum. You have scholars from across Africa who are here to meet their counterparts who teach in American institutions, American universities. Some of the things they're talking about, what I found fascinating was the ongoing crises, especially when you talk about coups. That was one of the topics that these scholars are trying to address. Then women leadership or women issues across the continent. How in most cases some women are not taken seriously, yet they hold significant positions wherever they are.
Paul, I understand there are people who are going to be honored. Do we know how many and why are they being honored?
Several people are being honored, but I'll maybe stick to the two who are getting the presidential prestigious awards. That's Queen Marian Raka Sharma and a veteran journalist and host of Straight Talk Africa, Dr. Shaka Sali. These two are incredibly talented in their respective ways, and the reason they're being honored is simply because of their contribution to Africa. In terms of how they covered Africa and in terms of how they have written extensively about Africa.
You mentioned that this is a collaboration between African scholars and American scholars and experts. What is expected out of this collaboration, especially for the continent of Africa?
So my observation is that you have a lot of young scholars who are studying here in North America. I ran into people from Zimbabwe, Zambia, Uganda, Kenya. All of them have, they're working on their research papers or they're working on their PhDs. So what they're doing is they're collaborating with their peers here to see how best they can serve their countries. I particularly talked to a lady from Zambia who is working on women studies. She's basically looking at how women in rural areas are treated, how in most cases they're not respected. But what she's trying to do is trying to connect the links, make sure that these women are heard and whatever they are doing across the continent is heard as well.
I hope it is hard as well, because for a long time, as we know, coming from the continent, women take the backseat. Paul, thank you very much. What is coming up tomorrow? I understand it's going on again tomorrow and maybe a day after?
Well, they have a series of events. You have a lot of speakers lined up, but as we speak, I think they're going to do the formal luncheon where they're going to be awarding the two major recipients of the awards this evening.
Paul, thank you very much for updating us on what's happening downtown Washington, D.C. on the Africa Forum. That's Paul Ndiho, live for us from the forum downtown D.C. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come, the Archbishop of Kigali celebrates Mass with the African community living here in Washington, D.C. We'll be right back.
You're watching VOA's Red Carpet. My name is Jackson Vunganyi. Thank you so much for joining us each week right here on Red Carpet. We bring you the latest in
You're watching Africa 54 from the Voice of America headquarters here in Washington, D.C. In other news, the United Nations top envoy in Sudan, Volker Perthes, is stepping down 4 months after being told by the government to leave. In parting remarks, he criticized Sudan's military and the rebel rapid support forces, saying, quote, indiscriminate attacks against civilians committed by the warring parties constitute gross violations of human rights. The U.S. military has resumed flying drones and manned aircraft out of air bases in Niger for more than a month after a coup, a temporary halt of all those activities, according to General James Hecker, the head of the U.S. Air Forces for Europe and Africa. And the Liberian government says it is launching an investigation into the origin of boxes containing illegal substances confiscated at the Roberts International Airport in Monrovia. The Archbishop of Kigali, Rwanda, Cardinal Antoine Kambanda, recently celebrated a Mass of the African community in Washington, attended by Rwandese and Burundians. In a one-on-one interview, Archbishop Kambanda spoke about the role of the church, which will celebrate 125 years, a 30-year journey of reconciling communities after the 1994 genocide that divided the country along ethnic lines, and the Kibeho Sanctuary, that is now a tourist site where operations took place in the 1980s.
The church in Rwanda in these last 125 years, the church has achieved a lot. The Christians, first of all, people were baptized and became Christians, good Christians. The families, the youth. The church also brought us together as a family of God. There was a great enthusiasm and a good welcome of the good news in Rwanda, many people becoming Christians.
Now, Cardinal, for 30 years, Rwanda has been on a path of finding peace and reconciliation after the 1994 genocide. What has the role of the church been like?
The church has played an important role. The church's way of doing it is it works slowly, transforming interiorly. It may not appear in figures and statistics, because this is an internal transformation, the change of heart. So for the last 30 years, the church played this internal reconstruction of the hearts and of the relationship between the people.
Rwanda has a special sanctuary in Kibeho where a lot of people, even tourists, like to visit. This is where we hear that young schoolgirls visited and saw Virgin Mary. What's the impact of Kibeho in the Christian church and for the people of Rwanda?
There's a great impact. Before the war and the genocide, and even after, when Our Lady appeared in Kibeho, she was warning that repent, and pray without hypocrisy. Let's pray with a real loving heart that overcomes the differences. When the genocide took place, we realized that this is what Our Lady was saying.
Cardinal, the Kigali Cathedral is set to be moved from the site where it is to the Kigali Central prison known as 1930. What's the significance of this move?
The city of Kigali doesn't have a cathedral proper to the title. This has a meaning. At least the divine providence shows us that what was a place of condemnation, now we turn it into a place of salvation.
Was the Archbishop of Kigali, Rwanda, Cardinal Antoine Kambanda. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way Americans work, with millions of people now working from home at least part of the time. Experts say offices must evolve to meet their needs. VOA's Dora Mekwar has more.
Parts of the Workplace Innovation Lab feel like a traditional office. Other sections look more like home. All of this furniture was brought in by private companies. They're partnering with the U.S. General Services Administration, or GSA, the agency in charge of federal buildings, to see if any of these setups represent the office of the future.
The office should be a magnet, not a mandate. We're looking to have an office that brings people back to it purposefully.
During this year-long experiment, any federal worker is allowed to reserve space at the lab. In return, they provide feedback about their experience.
It's not a one-size-fits-all. And in certain agencies and certain offices, it can be multiple solutions. And so we're looking at what is that mix of a solution.
What experts already know is that the same old office no longer works in a post-COVID world. People who spent the pandemic working from the comfort of home aren't excited about coming back to cubicle farms and mostly empty offices. Aditya Sangvi is head of real estate for a management consulting firm.
The offices that we have largely been designed as a place that people need to come. Many of them are cube farms that are really boring, unexciting, and nobody wants to be there. The office has suddenly become a choice. It's an option. And the office has to be better for someone than working from home and enduring the commute to come into the office.
At the Innovation Lab, that means having better acoustics and technology, and providing a more agile office.
But this is actually a table that's made up a lot of little wood pieces that actually folds away,
where furniture can be moved around to better suit workers' needs. Sangvi envisions immersive conference rooms where there's no difference between in-person and remote meetings, and maybe even office help for worker errands.
So one of the reasons that a lot of people work from home is that they have to pick up the kids, they have to do dry cleaning, they have to take care of the dog. And so what if there were pet care in the building? What if there was child care in the building? Things that actually make it that my life is easier because I'm going to the office, not that it's harder because I'm going to the office.
Office planners of the future will likely try to address three main criteria.
Has to be quality, has to be serving a purpose, but it still has to be beautiful. And so that's what we're looking for here is you don't want to go into a building that looks like you're in a basement you're on the 10th floor of a building kind of thing.
Which means the office of the future could look and feel a little bit more like home. Dora Mekwar, VOA News, Washington.
Thanks, Dora. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.